Hi, travelers. Thank you for joining us for another episode of my podcast, Life's a Voyage. Today, I am joined by my good friend, Rick. What's up, Rick?
Hi, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Of course. Today, we're going to talk about college, and I feel like me and Ricky both have very interesting perspectives on college. And do you want to just tell people just a small little bit about yourself first?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Rick Zagoni. I'm from Rochester, New York. I am friends with Adam and Tatiana, and we all work together at Hill and Valley Creative.
Yeah, so we work together, and we're friends and everything, so I thought it'd be nice to have a different guest besides Adam, though we love Adam. It's just, thought I'd mix it up. It's February. We can mix this up now. Well, this is going out in February. Okay, so today's topic is going to be college and just kind of talking about our experiences with college as well as like kind of what we took away from college. And, you know, maybe if you're younger and you're deciding to go to college, or you're older and you may have not gone to college and are debating it, this is kind of the podcast for you to maybe get a little bit of insight and talk about like the harder things about college, not like the glamorous, like get a degree and make lots of money, because that's not always how it goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just start off with why we went to college. So Rick, why'd you choose to go to college?
So I originally chose to go to college because nobody in my family had gone to college originally before, my mom and my dad. So they really pushed for us to go to college. There's three of us. I have two other siblings. And one of the biggest things is they just wanted me to go to college because they never got that experience. So there was that option. And then also I just wanted to in general because I felt like college was kind of the best option to better myself and kind of what I wanted to do in my life. Although I didn't know what I wanted to do, I knew that I wanted basically to go for higher education.
Yeah, I feel like I was kind of the same way. Like from a very young age, I was like, I just want to go to college. And I know like not everyone's like that, but I just kind of was like, I wanted to learn. I knew that college was an opportunity to, you know, make more money or whatever. Or I just knew that I wasn't an expert in what I wanted to do, which was graphic design and photography. I always was creative, and I knew I wanted to go to college to learn and to better myself. And I was also told to go. Like, I feel like my entire family was like, you're the smart one, like, go to college. Was that kind of like what it was for you, too?
Yeah, I think it's also because I was the oldest. So it's almost expected to me of, like, the oldest and kind of just, like, set an example maybe. But, like, yeah. So.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like people were kind of like, go to college, you're smart. Like, we kind of expect you to. And I also, like, I chose to go to college not only for, like, the educational, but, like, I grew up in, like, this weird household where no one was college educated, and we always struggled with money. And I thought back then that, like, the only way to break that generational curse of, like, poverty was to go to college. Like, everyone told me, like, oh, if you go to college, you get a good job and you make more money, and then you're not going to be in poverty anymore. And I was like, okay, like,
yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Or like that's exactly kind of how I saw college too.
Yeah, because neither of your parents went to college, right?
No, yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about like our family in college. But I do believe that even though like both of us kind of felt that pressure to go to college, even though we still wanted to go to college, I think that it is very important for people to only go to college if they really want to. Like, if you want to go to college, then you can find a way, you can go to college. But if you really don't want to, don't. Like, don't waste the money on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Or your time, really. It's, you know, not necessary to go to college anymore. But leading into kind of talking about our families and our families not going to college, neither of your parents went to college, but they both work for themselves, right?
Yep. So my dad started his landscape business pretty early on in his life. I think he has always done work outside, but he officially started a business, I think when he was like around my age, 24, 25. And my mom always worked for somebody. I don't think she doesn't work for herself, and she's always worked for somebody. And she's had the same boss who owns multiple companies for several years now. So they've been doing that on and off basically since we were kids. So they've always known just to kind of work, and that's how they get all their money. And that's why they didn't want us to follow that path, and they didn't want us to have to work all the time for somebody. They wanted us to kind of have like better lives, I guess, and more freedom. And with that, I think that's part of the reason they wanted us to go to college originally.
Yeah, more options.
Yeah.
Like they worked really hard for everything, and they didn't want you guys to have to work
And like struggle and stuff.
as hard. Yeah. Because even though like you grew up like with your parents and like in a house and everything, it wasn't like you were like as well off as like your parents had to work to make money for you guys.
Like all my friends that I grew up with, all their families, at least one of the parents went to college that I know of. And it's funny, they all ended up similarly to my parents because we all kind of, we weren't poor necessarily at all. We were very middle class, just like everybody else in my neighborhood and stuff. So they just, I think, had to work a little harder because they didn't have that college degree or experience. So. Yeah,
I agree. And my family, my mom went to college, never finished, never had a career ever, and really didn't ever have a career path. And then my dad didn't go to college either. Was kind of entrepreneurial in the same spirit, opened a restaurant, didn't work out, that kind of thing. And then late in life, he went back to college, like in his 50s. He went back to college and he started his career in his 50s. And he always says that it was like one of the best things he had ever done. But growing up, like neither of my parents had college degrees or had that, you know, that income that usually comes along with education or, you know, typically people that go to college do make a higher income. So I didn't grow up with that. And it kind of probably pushed me more to go to college because like I feel like if you grow up in a household where both of your parents go to college, you might be less inclined to feel like it's necessary because you don't know life without it, you know? But I was kind of the opposite where no one in my family had really gone to college. So it was kind of like a first, except for my dad late in life, but that's a whole nother story. Like it wasn't like his entire career was what helped him throughout life, you know? But yeah, I think that it's important to know that even if your family didn't go to college, you can still go to college. Like you can break that cycle and you can be the first one to go to college. And I know it's kind of like weird and like you can get scholarships nowadays for being the first one to go to college in your family, which is amazing for people that want to. But you know, if your family did go to college, it doesn't mean you have to either. Right. It really, you should base it off of what you want to go to school for. If you even want to go to college or you want to go to a trade school, if you want to go to cosmetology school, like whatever you want to do, I would say that don't let your family's previous experience in education dictate what you do with your experience in education. Yeah, it's important. I think that's like the biggest thing. And then let's just talk about like our overall college experience. Like what was your college experience like? Because we did it very differently. Yeah. So in regards to my college experience, I didn't get, I guess, quote unquote, the college experience where you live in a dorm and you meet friends and stuff like that. I started at a community college at Monroe Community College out in Rochester, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So that was already kind of a red flag because it was kind of hard to go to college without any kind of path. So long story short, I ended up liking geology a lot, so I transferred to SUNY Geneseo, which is a great school for geology. I learned quickly that I didn't like geology as much as I thought, or that I didn't want to work in the field, I guess. And then I had so many friends in the film and photography industry that I kind of fell in love with that. And I've always liked taking videos and stuff, like, and making YouTube videos. So then I transferred to SUNY Oswego and finished out my degree in film, cinema and screen studies at SUNY Oswego. So so you bumped around to a lot of different. Yeah. When you started at Monroe Community College, did you start with a path, or did you just start taking classes? So I sat down with a counselor, and they basically were like, "What do you enjoy? Like, what classes would you like?" And they showed me a sheet, and I picked, like, one of the things I remember I picked was astronomy, and that's what got me into geology. So that helped me a lot, but yeah, I had no path going in whatsoever. No path. Yeah. And that's funny because people, I feel like that's most common. It's like people go into college either with a path or without, and they're like, they change their mind 5 times and like they figure it out along the way. But in my case, and even in Adam's case, like we both started in advertising photography and we ended in advertising photography. Yeah. Like we were both very like driven and kind of knew what we wanted. So I feel like that's so crazy. Like I feel like I'm the lesser circumstance. Like I feel like less people know what they want going into college
Right.
and stick with it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And I know like almost all of my friends switch degrees.
Yeah, that's
in
very
college.
common, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you were going to school for geology, it wasn't that you decided you didn't love rocks. It was that you just didn't see yourself in that career.
Yeah, I love geology. I still do. It's like a pretty good hobby of mine. I didn't want to. A lot of the jobs in geology were like working in oil or gas and like kind of stuff like that. And I mean, I like the idea of moving out west. I've always wanted to do that, where geology is big and stuff. But a lot of geology was the jobs kind of. It wasn't really what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I quickly realized. And I think that's why a lot of kids switch their major halfway through college, because they kind of sit there and they think, wow, like I have to do this for the rest of my life. Like, do I really want to be doing this? And that's, I think, why so many kids change their major. They get kind of really scared, and then they realize like this is it. So I think that's why a lot of kids change early on.
Yeah, and I think that for me personally, like I just knew that I wanted to be in photography and graphic design. Like I knew that that was like the general idea of what I wanted, and I had no clue the job opportunities for like photography. Like if you are interested in the photography field, you don't have to be a photographer. Like you can be a huge range of different things. I'm a creative director now, technically. Like yes, I do photography, but like for Hill and Valley, I'm a creative director, which I love. I love creative direction, and I didn't even know that was a thing before going to college. Like I feel like in stylists and assistants and digital techs, like there's so many different like paths you can take within photography. And I feel like a lot of kids get into, you know, specifically photography. They go to school for photography and then they're like, I don't want to be a photographer. I want to do like this, that, or the other thing. And that can help you narrow down what you should be learning, and it also may change your path. So I think that's something to consider, is like no one told me to do research when I was in high school into what my degree would land me in, you know, like what were my options for actual jobs. No one really said that. And I feel like that would have helped me to make certain work during college or enjoy my college experience more. And then going back to like kind of the social aspect and like the dorm living and stuff like that, you didn't have that, right? You lived at home for the first part of college. Yeah,
so Monroe Community College was very close to my house, so I commuted for the 2 years that I went there. And then when I went to Geneseo and Oswego, I lived off campus in basically a random apartment, just like college, just random. They're not even college apartments. They were just kind of
like houses. Just
houses, but like they would rent to college kids, obviously. So it was like in the town, basically. So I always did that, and I had friends in the classes and stuff that I made, but I was never really like, I never joined a fraternity. I never didn't really go to parties much at all, and a lot of my friends were back home, so I kind of stuck with them. So I really did not have the college experience that everybody else has, which in a sense kind of sucks. Like I wish I would have done things differently, but financially I wanted to stay safe and not go in the dorm and do the meal plan because it was so much money. And I did save quite a bit of money doing that, but at a cost of not being as social, I guess, and making as many friends, I guess.
Yeah, I feel because I was on scholarship to RIT, and at RIT you have to stay in the dorms for the first year, like unless you're a commuter. So unless my family lived within Rochester, I had to stay in dorms. And even though it was a crazy experience and it was like a blur, like so many different things happened, good and bad, living in dorms, I definitely think that it really helped shape me and like as a person. And it was the social aspect, and like just it helped me develop relationships early in college, so I didn't feel as alone. But it was definitely expensive, and we'll talk about like our debt situation and like money situation a little bit later in the episode. But I think that if you had the option, would you go back and do dorms even if you went a little bit more in debt? Like,
so if I knew what I wanted to do,
like if you knew what you know now,
if I knew what I wanted to do, if I knew what I wanted to do going into college, like say I had a career path that I had already set out to do, I would 100% go to the dorms and do the whole thing. I've always wanted to do that. It just, because I didn't know what I wanted to do and everything was so sporadic and I was like a transfer student, I kind of just like was like, okay, like this is what it has to be. And my parents pushed me to do that because of not just financially, but also because I was undecided. So when you're undecided, if you go to a big 4-year school and you do the dorms and everything, you're going to fall behind because you're not going to be interested in the classes you're taking because there's no end goal.
Right.
So for me, I was kind of just wandering around hoping I would pick up a good major. So that's why it would make sense for me to mess around in the dorms and have that experience because there's nothing to look forward to, but you know what I mean? So
yeah, but you would do it.
I would 100% even recommend people, if you know what you want to do, 100% do the full college experience. I think it's very valuable in a lot of ways, and I recommend that. Yeah,
I did dorms for 1 year, and then I lived in an on-campus apartment for 2 years. Dorms for 1 year, on-campus apartment for 2 years, and then an off-campus rental for after college too. So
I think a lot of people do that too. They do the dorms. I think everybody should do the dorms for at least a year, like you, and then they can move on campus or wherever. But I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it was a different experience. Like I said, it's kind of gross, you know, living with all those people and everything, but it's really fun too sometimes. It is, yeah. But I overall really liked that part, the social part of college at the beginning, and then later I was like, I'm over this. I thought it was really hard because I went to RET, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this, but like RET is like a very high price tag college. So a lot of the people I was going to college with had money, and like their parents had money, and I didn't. And it was like very detrimental to me because I felt like I couldn't always fit in or afford everything that people were doing, or I would work harder for things because I had to pay for them. And like, did you find any like anything like that going on? Because you went to a community college, so most people probably weren't coming from a lot of money.
Yeah. So,
then a state school, right?
Yeah. So I went to all state schools, SUNY, Oswego, and Geneseo, and then also Monroe Community College. Where the tuition a year is like, I think the most expensive is like $8,000, I think, a year, or even less. It's very cheap to go to SUNY schools in terms of college.
RET is $50,000 a year.
Yeah, so it's comparatively, that's
$50,000.
Yeah. So when I would go to those schools, I actually loved the kids. I actually felt like I fit in a lot, and that was like a big thing because when I would go to my classes, all the kids were there like basically to do the same thing I was, but also we had similar upbringings because a lot of the kids weren't well off, you know, and they were trying to be cheap and stuff. So it was I felt like I fit in a lot more there. On the other hand, though, some kids in those community colleges, because the tuition is so cheap, like to mess around even more. So there's a lot of like kind of like messing around and not taking things seriously in classes, which is distracting. But the kid, once you get into higher level classes where kids want to be there, it's actually very nice talking to kids who are on your same like financial level, and everything is very similar. So in that aspect, I love going to the SUNY schools and everything.
Yeah, I wish, and I wouldn't change anything. Like RET worked out for me, but I wish that someone had told me when I was going to RET to expect that, because I know I would go to like the grocery store with friends and they would whip out like their parents' credit card and like daddy was paying their groceries, and I'd be like, you know, being cheap and getting like non-name brand products just because I couldn't afford them. And like it was like little things like that would add up and make me less social because I didn't want to be reminded that I was like poor compared to everyone I was going to school with. So I feel like once you get out of dorms and everyone's kind of like in apartments and things start to like, you start to meet people or know them better, I felt like that class disparity was greater. It felt greater. So I kind of wish I went to a smaller school for that reason, because I feel like I would feel less alone. And I almost transferred because of that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. I like when I met Adam, I had my my transcript, my official transcript. I had requested it. I'd paid for my official transcript to transfer to a college closer to home because I hated it and I wanted to leave.
Yeah.
And then I met Adam and I was like, oh, I guess I'll stay. And then it worked out. But
yeah, and Adam is similar to me, like his family. I've met his family, and they're very similar financially. So him going to RT, I don't think that bothered him as much. I mean, I know it did a little bit, but he's very confident. He's very he kind of thinks those kids are funny. He doesn't even like, and I've taken a lot from Adam, like in that aspect, because he doesn't really see that as a problem, where he kind of ignores it, and he's just like, yeah, I'm here to learn, you know, and he ended up being one of the most successful ones because he took things very seriously, you know. Yeah. And I think if you're good at what you do and you really put the time in, it doesn't matter who has the money. It's always just like who puts the most time in. And I think that's what he really got out of it.
Yeah, and he like when I met him, I thought he was cool because he would only hang out with like his friends from home and like his commuter friends. Like I called them like the commuters and stuff like, and he didn't let it bother him. And maybe it's because he didn't live on campus, so he didn't see it as much. But I wish that I had known to like kind of like let it roll off your back and not bother you.
It probably definitely helped that he commuted, because I think that definitely helps. You don't see as much, and there's not you don't see all the stuff that goes on.
Yeah, so that was really hard. I wish someone told me that when I was going into college. So let's talk about who would you recommend going to college to, and if you were recommending it, why?
So I've thought about this a lot in the few years after college and during college, and I always tell kids, if you genuinely know what you want to do, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a nurse or an engineer or something like that, that you 100% know that I love doing this, I want to help people, or I want to build things for the rest of my life, 100% you should go to college, get a degree, do the whole college experience, study really hard, But on the other hand, if you're someone who doesn't really know, like maybe they like, oh, I kind of want to be like this, or I kind of want to be like a filmmaker, I kind of want to be...
My dad's a doctor, so I want to be a doctor.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
You kind of just like, oh, like kind of, I want to hang out with my friends in college, or just whatever. Or like maybe you're, just stuff like that, I guess. People like that. I would recommend not going to college, because there's a lot of ways you can learn how to do skills now with YouTube and stuff like that. And also with trades. I know tons of people who out of high school get into trades and make way more than a lot of my friends who go to college, and enjoy it a lot more. They have more freedom with their time because they're getting paid a lot of money to do very specific niche jobs and
they start
construction.
Earlier,
yeah, they do. Yeah. So, and those are fantastic. And for example, my brother, he always hated college, but he went to college for sports. He liked playing lacrosse, but he did not do well in college, and he didn't like all of that in the education. So he found early on, so he dropped out of college, and he actually ended up working with a real estate company, and he was a manager for them. He actually made a lot of money, a lot more money than a lot of kids I know out of college, and he didn't even finish college. So he just had that connection. So I think if you know people and you kind of know a path, I wouldn't recommend going to college, and maybe I would take a year off of high school, but college definitely isn't for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree wholeheartedly that like if you're not 100% on the train for college, don't go to college. Like, you can wait, you can always apply later, you can go later in life when you figure your shit out. Like, do not go to college if you're not on board, and you need to know what you're signing up for, because not only are you signing up for 2 to 4 years of your life in academia, but like you're signing up for maybe debt, you're signing up for lots of expenses that aren't going to be covered by tuition, you're signing up for your friends or family seeing it this way or that way. Like, you're signing up for more than just going to college. So if you're not 100% on board, don't go. And we agree on that.
Yeah.
But I do recommend that, I went to school for art, photography is art. And a lot of people were like, oh, if you're going to college, you should go to college for something that's like you need a degree for. And I think that's wrong, because even though you don't need a degree in photography to get work in photography, like if you graduate high school and you learn what you need to learn, you can get a job in photography, like easy. Like, you don't need a degree. But I needed to learn the material. Like, I didn't know anything about photography except for like the basics, like exposure and composition and like how to use a camera, like, and not even a digital camera. Like, I didn't really know how to use digital cameras going into college. I only knew film, which sounds weird because nowadays, like, it's so backwards. But like, I didn't know anything, so I needed to learn my path, like my career. So even though you don't need a degree in photography, like, I needed to learn about photography. And I think that like it really helped me to, you learn other things in school besides just like your exact skill. Like, I learned more than just photography. I learned about like pitching jobs and client work and stuff like that. And that's all stuff that was just kind of handed to me in my education rather than me just figuring it out over years. So to add on to, if you know what you want to do, go to college, but it doesn't, like, even, yes, the engineers and the doctors need to get an education to do what they do. But even for photography or filmmaking or any of those like careers where maybe you don't need copywriting, like you don't need an actual degree in that field to get a job. It's also just about learning and having the information handed to you rather than you searching for it and learning it on your own. So I think that's very important as well. So I would recommend college to people in the art fields or other fields, can't think of one off the top of my head, that want to learn fast and right, basically, instead of trial and error.
Yeah, efficiently. Yeah, and like make better use of your time, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about college and how it set us up for life. What was our college situation post-college? And let's talk about debt and how we used our degrees and stuff like that. So post-college, what'd you do, Ricky?
So even during college, since I lived close to home for most of it and stuff, I worked at a pizzeria out in Henrietta where I live in Rochester, and I worked there for years. And then on and off, I worked with my dad, who, like I said, owns his own landscape business. So I would help him mow lawns, do landscape work, which I love doing in the summer. I love doing that quite a bit, actually. And I would work at the pizzeria on and off. And even after college, that's what I immediately did. I kept doing that path, and I kept doing that until, I started working with Adam more. And then that's when my career path really took off. And that's when things really started to change. But that took, I think, at least a year. I think that took a year after college. But I also worked with Adam during college. So kind of that helped me a lot. And that also gave me a lot of motivation during college to finish, because of knowing I was going to be working with Adam, and I was actually going to be using my degree in filmmaking here at Hill and Valley. So
yeah, and I think that the only reason why it took you a while to get on board was because business was just starting. We just started the business.
Yeah.
We were just picking up with how much work we needed done and all that stuff. So, but basically you got out of college and started working for yourself.
Yeah.
Besides your part-time jobs,
yeah,
but you started working here. Because you are a business partner, so technically you own part of the business. It is your business as well as Adam's. Everyone always refers to Hill and Valley as Adam's business, but it's not technically.
He was the one who came up with
he's the founder.
Yeah, he's the founder. He came up with everything, and then early on, he made it a partnership. So it's me and him now. We're the partners. So, but it was his idea, and he was the one who started it. So I always go back to him. But we are in this together. So we are together, but
spilled my coffee for those that aren't watching. But yeah, and what's Adam is mine, so technically it's also my business, but not really, not technically. Not yet. But yeah, so you started working here, and then I, on the other hand, got a full-time job. I always say it was my full-time job, but it wasn't technically full-time. I worked for RAT, actually. So when I was graduating college, I graduated on the off season because I graduated in December, and there was this job posting for a position at RAT as a marketing assistant, where I was doing social media, design, that kind of thing. And I started working there. It was 30 something hours a week, so almost full time, but I was technically on contract. I wasn't a part-time employee. I wasn't a full-time employee. And that was my goal, was to get a full-time job out of college and start working full-time. For years, that was what I wanted, was I want stable income, I want to get a job. And then I did it, and I talked about this in one of the last episodes, but I did it, and then I was not happy. And I was wow, I hate this. And of course the money was good, and the hours were great, but it wasn't what I wanted to take my career in. I didn't want to just work for someone else forever, and I also didn't want to do the work I was doing. So are you happy doing the work you're doing now?
Yeah, 100%. I'm very happy with the career path I'm in now with Adam and Hill and Valley and everything. It's the best. I feel very lucky because it's the best thing that could have happened to me, because very early on I've always wanted to start my own business and be independent, because early on when I worked at the pizzeria and stuff, I knew I hated that, working for somebody and making a paycheck for somebody else. And I always knew the way to make money, and the money I wanted to make and for myself and to be successful, was to work by myself and make my own money and stuff like that. So when I started working with Adam, I saw the opportunity, and that's when I really started to work with him, because I saw what he was creating was going to be something big and grow into something successful. So I really wanted to get on board with that. Plus, it would also fit perfectly into what I went to school for and the career path I wanted for my life. So I could not have been luckier, and I'm still happy that with what I'm doing now, which is, I think, very, very uncommon, because
most people aren't happy.
Most people out of college go right into a very different job, whether it's just
not their dream job,
fast food, McDonald's, or fast food, landscaping, or just kind of like a 9 to 5, like kind of pay the bills thing.
Until part-time.
Or part-time, until they figure out what they actually want to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like working jobs that you figure out you don't love is so beneficial to see like what you do want to do. It's kind of like the same with like dating, right? Like when you date people, you date to figure out what you do and don't like, and then once you find someone that you're like, okay, there's nothing I don't like, because you've learned from past relationships. It's the same thing with jobs. You need to date your jobs, kind of like go work different types of jobs and see what you like. Like, do you like working on a schedule? Do you like working freelance? Do you like working with customers? Do you like working with clients? Do you like working with no one? Like, do you like working remote? Those are all things you have to learn, and post-college, that's the time to do it, or during college. So I think that's so true. Is like we both are lucky because we are working our dream jobs, basically. We're exactly where we want to be right now. I mean, everything could be better always, but like we're very happy with where we're at, and we don't think that's common. And then let's talk about post-college. So we're both kind of using our degree. I always think it's funny because like I got this degree and like now I don't have to show it to anyone because like we work for ourselves. I'm like, it just hangs up in my apartment, and I'm like, that was fun. Like 4 years, but like now I don't get to like put it on my resume because I don't have to like put in my resume anywhere. Is that funny to you? Like, do you?
Well, I guess I look at it differently because like when I talk to clients or when I talk to people now, if they question us, I can say like, you know, like I do have a bachelor's degree in cinema and screen studies, so I do know what I'm doing. Same with Adam and same with you. So I feel like I have that kind of edge. Whereas like if some kid out of high school has a camera and he's like, oh, I can do this and doesn't have a degree. Well, like we have the experience of college and learning. Like my college experience, you know, although I feel like I didn't learn a ton at Oswego with in regards to film, I did learn a lot about analog film and shooting on actual film with like,
which is the best way to learn photography.
And I learned that with video, and that definitely helped me in a lot of ways with framing, with lighting, with exposure, like 100%. And that's a very unique kind of experience. So in that aspect, I feel like my degree is kind of worthwhile because I can tell people that.
I guess it's like credibility. It gives us credibility.
Because I can put it on the website, I can say like, oh, I have a bachelor's degree in cinema and screen studies, which helps. But it is funny, like you said, like it is funny that it's just sitting in my house and it really probably won't be used ever.
We'll never have to leverage it to get a job. Yeah, I think that's funny. And then the last thing I really want to touch on today, so I guess wrapping that little portion up is like, even though like we don't need it to show people to get jobs, it was still worthwhile. That's really what it comes down to. And then we'll wrap up the episode just talking about debt really quick, which I think could be a whole topic in itself. But let's talk about student debt. If you want to just run through really quick, did you know going into college that you were going to be in debt? Were you always aware of the loans you were taking out? Like, what was your experience with your college debt?
So early on, when I went to Monroe Community College, I was very young. I didn't know anything about money or life in general, really. When I was 18 years old, I don't know anything. So I knew that there was debt involved. I knew there was a lot of debt involved. So that's why I chose to go to one of the cheapest, but also the best community colleges in the area. So after that, when I transferred, I also knew that I wanted to not transfer to a four-year school, but rather a SUNY school, which can be a four-year school. But since it's a state school, the tuition's a lot lower. So I knew I was going to be in debt. But with the degree or what I wanted to do, I didn't think it was going to be a problem after college. And luckily so far, I'm in debt, but not as nearly as much as some of my friends. And I'm actually really okay with the debt I have now.
Right.
It's very low, and I'm actually very fortunate.
So when you were like applying for college, did you apply for scholarships or did you just pay it? Did you just find loans and stuff like that?
So in high school, I was pretty lazy and dumb. My parents pushed me to do all these scholarships, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I just wouldn't do them. I was lazy. But there are a lot of scholarships I did apply for. I think I got a few grants, so I did get money towards college a little bit and stuff. And also I got a lot of financial aid because of my family situation and stuff, so that helped me.
Right.
But
From the school.
Yeah, another recommendation though for people is to do scholarships. Like 100%, please do them because there are a lot of money out there in scholarships, especially for first generation students. So
yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny because you were aware that you were aware enough that you were like, okay, I'm gonna go to a cheaper school, but you weren't like counting the dollars and being like, okay, I'm gonna have this much in debt.
Right.
Yeah, so I was like the opposite because I was like going into college, I was like, I'm gonna have I cannot have debt getting out of college. Like that's the only way for me to like break this cycle of poverty or whatever they say. So when I was going into college, I purposely sat down and I took the SAT like 3 times to get a higher score so that I could get more scholarship from RAT. So I had like so much scholarship. I had, financial aid for being poor. I had federal aid. I had RAT scholarship for being academically, for doing the SATs and getting good grades. And then I also had my high school, which I went to my high school purposely because I knew they gave scholarship for college. That was like the one reason why I went to Milton Hershey in the first place, was because I was like, I know that they give $80,000 in scholarship.
Yeah.
And that covers almost 2 years of RAT. So I was like,
which is a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh my God. And now they give them more. I saw the other day that they give them like $100-something. Well,
because tuition's going up.
Yeah. Oh my God. But I was like so aware of it, and I was like, I'm going to start saving in college to pay off my debt. So I was always like down to the T. And then when I got later in college, I realized that I could graduate early and have nothing. And so I did that. And that's why I graduated early, was literally to avoid debt. So I'm lucky that I don't have any debt, but Adam does. So yeah. I basically do now. But I think it's not a bad thing to go into a little bit of debt for college. Like, do you mind saying like how much you have?
So I started out, I think originally, because I jumped around a few different schools, I want to say altogether it was between $30,000 and $40,000. I'm not sure. I was fortunate enough to have my parents help me with a lot of that, because they've been in a lot of debt because of not learning a lot of things from not going to college. Financially they did things differently because they didn't really know. They didn't have the parents to teach them how to do things, so they were always in a lot of debt, and they didn't want us to do that. So fortunately, they helped me with a lot of it. So right now, I think I'm sitting around, $15,000 to $20,000 in debt, which is pretty good.
And some of that your parents helped,
yes.
And some of that you've been paying.
Yeah, some of it I've been paying, and then some of it my parents have helped me along the way. But as of now, I will be paying the rest of it, and I think I'm in a pretty good place because that's pretty good. It's like a car payment, really.
Yeah, no, that's not a lot. Like, I feel like the average, I should look this up, is like whatever the average student loan debt is, but it's probably upwards of like $50,000. Yeah, I know people with like hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt, and that's scary. But like, if you're gonna go $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in debt for a college education, and you're aware of that and you're okay with that, I think that's fine. Like, me graduating without any debt is very rare. And I think that most people, what's the average?
So the average I looked up is the average student loan debt is $32,700.
Yeah.
So it's lower than I thought, actually. But
yeah, that's lower than I thought too. But I would say don't be terrified of student loan debt, because there's so many ways to pay it off over a long time or a short time and get really small interest amounts and stuff like that. But also be aware of what you're taking out. That's the biggest thing, is just to be aware of what you're taking out.
Yeah, as long as you're aware of your finances and kind of like your family situation and everything, or at least mildly, like, you should be okay, and it should be completely fine.
Yeah. And I think just a good way to end this episode is to just say that, like, you're not going to learn everything in college. It's not like an end-all be-all, like, wipe your hands when you get out and you're like, oh, yay, I'm done. Like, I did that. Now I know everything. Because we learn every day at our job, like on set, we're constantly learning new things, new equipment, new software, new ways to do things. And I think that one of the things that I like really value the most is like lifelong learning. Like, I've heard that term my entire life, and I really agree with it, whether it's just reading a book or taking trainings or workshops, free workshops online. Whatever it is, you should just constantly be learning and bettering yourself in whatever you choose to do, whether that's a career path like we've taken in the creative industry, or, you know, whatever you're doing, even if it's just a hobby, just continue learning and doing that forever.
Yeah, and my tip with that is after college, I know a lot of people are discouraged and they feel like they didn't learn anything. But just like Tot said, that we are always learning. So when you are out of college, don't feel like you're going to stop learning or you're afraid that you don't know anything, because at your job, they will teach you more and they will push you in a direction that will make you successful, because that's what happened here with Adam. Like, he taught me a lot of what I know. And I know a lot of jobs, they still, even if you go to college, they still teach you their way of doing things. So you'll learn a lot. So don't be discouraged if you feel like you don't know anything out of college, or at least that's what you think, but you do know more than you think. And that's what I've gathered from talking to a lot of people.
Yeah, and just my experience in the photography world, I talk to other photographers all the time in Rochester or just online, and I have a huge base of knowledge from my college education that if you learn online, like, you may miss things. And I'm always talking to photographers about new things or old things, and just, you know, expanding my network and my knowledge base always. So college does give you the base you need, but you should be learning forever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And college is a great networking tool as well. I've had so many jobs come to us just because we went to RET, and people love RET students or whatever it is, RET grads. So there's lots of benefits, lots of downsides to going to college. And it's really a decision that takes time to make. Don't just do it because someone tells you to, and really think over all of the aspects of what you're signing up for.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's about it. How you feeling, Rick? Is everything said?
Yeah, I think we covered everything, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for tuning in. If you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts, it helped me out a lot. I would appreciate it. And you can follow us on all our socials linked below. Thanks, guys.